Hello, everybody. This is season 13 of the Earful Tower podcast. I forgot the name of it after a few episodes away. I'm really excited to kick off this season with a bang because it's going to be a bit different right from the get-go, not least because I'm sitting in Australia, in Tasmania, the little island at the bottom. To my left, Eddie G.
Hello.
Nice to have you on the show.
Nice to be here.
To my right, Lina Norton G.
Hello.
Known to many as Lovely Lina. We figured the three of us together from our three sort of separate perspectives would be able to talk over a topic that's been playing on all of our minds this week about culture clashes when the French language, and any language really, sneaks into the English language and all the problems it can cause after a very big example of this happened in our little world this week.
Well, it sounds like a fait accompli, don't you think?
Wait a minute, are you using that correctly? I think that's a bit of a faux pas.
You two, stop right now. We'll save this for the episode after some music from Pressmax. So, season 13 of the show, which I can't believe, after the big season with Lina as a co-host.
Yeah.
Must be nice to step back.
Oh, blissful vacation time.
But you didn't get away very far.
Not really.
But
I'm right here.
The reason that the three of us are sitting in Australia is because Lina and I are about to do a big book tour for our new book down the east coast of Australia. We'll talk about that more at the end of the show. But it's linked to that book, how this conversation came up. And what I think I'll do is I'll explain exactly what happened and how it ties into today's topic. And then we're going to sort of share some examples of it. And we discussed if we could come to a conclusion about it, but I don't think there is a conclusion.
I think it's just a discussion.
It's a round table talk.
Yeah, it's like opinions and ideas.
Yeah, well, I think best is if I read the post that I put on so that everybody who hasn't seen it understands.
Yeah, set the scene.
Okay, so the first scene is Lina and I wrote our third children's book. I wrote it, Lina illustrated it. It's called Grace the Giraffe in Paris. I put a phrase in that, and when I say phrase, I don't mean strawberry in French. I put in a phrase.
Relevant, but ridiculous.
I wonder if I should read what I wrote here or tell how it... I guess this... I'll just read it, okay. There's a picture of me holding the book. I said, fun fact, when you make a book, you can get an advanced copy like the one I'm holding. Then you pore over every word looking for typos, showing it to friends, and so on. This time, an American friend, shout out to Janet, she pointed out that I used the phrase a la mode to refer to Paris giraffe fashion, where everyone dressed in yellow and brown with spots. But apparently in the US, a la mode means with ice cream on the side, which is also...
I can confirm that after 5 years in the States.
Funny you say it, because some people said it means ice cream on the top.
On top of what? What if you're having a savoury meal and you get ice cream on the side?
So I continued. So I'm left with a decision. Do I keep the line and trust everyone will figure it out, or do I scrap the line and eliminate the possibility of confusing ice cream fans? I still haven't made my final decision. I think I'm going to change the line, though. What would you do? Question mark.
And the answers came flooding in.
Oh my gosh.
How many responses?
Just to that one on Facebook, 316.
Gee whiz.
I put it on Instagram too, and maybe on Twitter. The floodgates were open. Too many to read.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Incredible.
Yeah.
And what can you give us some general ideas?
So first, just the idea that so many people responded to something like that is interesting. It says a lot about the topic, which, using French phrases, dumbing things down, educating people. Where's too much? Where's too little? The gist was, I'd say the majority of the people said, keep it, but they were very passionate about, don't take that line out. There were a small minority who were like, change it! I don't understand! And then there were a lot of other people who chimed in with other things that we can talk about too. But I think for full context, what the line was that I'd written, maybe we discuss the page a little bit. Eddie is a foreigner who hasn't... A foreigner, as in foreign to the book.
Here.
Foreign to the book. You haven't seen the finished product.
No.
You can also weigh in with your thoughts. And not least, this page was your masterpiece, Lina, of drawing.
Well, I spent a lot of time doing research, like historical research, to get a fun, educational spread.
So you set the scene on what you drew, and then I'll set the scene on what I wrote.
Okay, so this is towards the end of the book, and it's about... So the main story is set in 1827, and this spread would be like a time, you like race through time 200 years later, and it's modern day. And I was like, how do I depict that? Like, how to show that in, like, visually? And I was like... Coming from a fashion background, I was like, with fashion, obviously, and the change and evolution of style within this time frame. So it goes from the giraffe fashion with the, the brown and yellow spots.
People dressed like 200 years ago, basically.
All the way to modern day, and like I included familiar faces in Paris. Like Josephine Baker, Jane Birkin, Coco Chanel, Picasso, etc. And yeah, that's essentially it.
And that's interesting because that's part of the topic too of culturally having things that maybe will mean something to one culture and some other people won't get it, whether you need to dumb that stuff down or whether it's educating or whether it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
There'll be kids reading who will have no idea that's Coco
Of course,
Chanel.
I assume that most children reading this won't realize who or what I've put in. It's just like it's a fun spread, and you read the text and you're like, oh, it's more modern here, and it looks like old fashioned over there. But really, if it's like historically interested grown-ups reading it to the children, they will recognize quite a lot.
And we've shown it to some French people and they get excited.
Yeah.
Going, Karl Lagerfeld,
And
Pablo
then,
Picasso.
yeah, exactly. And once you started recognizing one face, you'd be like, oh, who else is in there? And you can like look
Easter
around.
egg.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think it works too that children will just see faces.
And colours.
Yeah, colours and fun, details. There's a lot to look at.
And so people often ask us how we go about the creating of the book. And this is a really good example. I write it out on a page, A4 page, write out the whole book.
Like a poem.
Yeah.
In a way.
Yeah, exactly. And then you take over and you add pictures to every two to 4 lines. And then I look at the finished product or the finished sketches and I go, I'm going to change that. I'm going to change that. And then you often change it again. It's back and forth.
Yeah. We like dissecting pieces bit by bit.
Which the risk is it can go forever.
Yeah. So you have to know where to stop.
And this was an example that did seem to go forever. And the text, to get back to it, and it has changed. And I'll reveal at the end whether we kept a la mode in there. But the text at first was along the lines of, it was something like, when everything was done, and this isn't the text, I'm giving you the gist. When everything was done, the party was over, Grace lived the rest of her life near the Seine. Giraffe as a fashion was not a la mode 200 years past as the Seine River flowed. That was the gist. So Eddie...
Giraffe fashion with ice cream. Doesn't make sense.
Well, that's
Giraffe
the thing.
flavoured
Could
ice
take
cream.
a context clue there to figure out that...
Especially because it was a very fashion-y page.
Yeah.
Yes.
And actually, so one answer was like, why don't you just put someone eating ice cream on the page so it makes sense for in both
I think that makes it more
ways?
confusing.
Yeah.
Well, that's
I
the
guess
thing.
they didn't
It's
know
almost a
the
double
spread.
entendre, really, if you're doing both.
No, here we go. So
Okay,
this
it's begun.
and this
Smack
gets
that
to
one in.
this gets to the crux of what it's all about. But there were also people who were saying things like, "Hey," and no one's wrong or right in this whole thing. But some people were putting comments. It's fine. Just put brackets explaining what it is. Yeah, Eddie's shaking his head.
No brackets.
You can't have brackets. Some people said put a footnote. No, you can't put a footnote. Someone said at the start of the book explain it, or at the end of the book. No, the problem is the whole point of the story is that it flows. It's crucial that it flows. It has to be nice. You don't want to be teaching people something on every page. And for people who commented and said, we want to learn stuff. There's a limit to it as well, because why not just write the whole book in French?
Yeah.
Read an encyclopedia if you want to learn something.
Yeah, well, you don't want to distract from the story, the actual story. You want to be completely
Especially if it rhymes.
into it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then it stops.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
So then there were some people who took issue with other things. Several people said, well, if you're editing the book, you should edit your caption because you said pour over, P-O-R-E. It should be P-O-U-R. And nothing riles up someone like me more than telling me I spelt something incorrectly when I spelt it correctly.
Did you?
Yeah, I just wrote, nah, you're wrong, to several people. But it really got people going, this subject of language and stuff, and we got talking about it. What's the limit of
Education.
that you can get away with.
How much to use? How much to interject it into English?
Yeah,
exactly.
And if a la mode, what did you say was in that Steve Carell movie?
Little Miss Sunshine is a very famous a la mode scene. That's how I knew what it meant.
And that's how you knew it, whereas a lot of people said that it wasn't anything, it was in the 70s or something. A lot of young people don't know.
Uncultured. You gotta watch star-studded film, Little Miss Sunshine.
Star-studded cast.
So the idea is, do you put in a phrase that no one will know, and where's the limit on it?
It makes your language a little more colourful, I think, if you sprinkle in a little bit of that. Sprinkles,
Definitely.
ice cream, a la mode. I got it all. I'm on
You're
fire.
on theme.
We were left with a tricky decision, because I shared that post on social media knowing that I didn't like the line that I'd written anyway.
And now with this outcome, you feel almost pressured.
I felt a little bit pressured to keep it in.
Yeah.
And some comments were saying, which is a whole extra topic, but they were saying, don't you dare compromise, or no, I beg you to not compromise the integrity of your prose.
Wow.
That's a heavy weight.
If you've written something, it's a book set in France, you leave it like that. People were saying, these aren't my words, but people were saying, Americans can figure it out. They need to learn. People from other countries were jumping and saying, I understand it as an Irishman. The Americans can figure it out.
It's just incredible that such a small thing, just a little teeny tiny phrase can get so much reaction, and people are feeling like really quite strongly about it.
So Eddie, we haven't talked to you about this, but as you work in graphic design, you edit podcasts, videos, not just for us at the Earful Tower, but for other companies too.
Correct.
Around the world.
Globally.
What's your reaction to this whole thing?
Well,
and what would you have us do? Plot twist, we've already sent it to the Prince of Supercam.
I say keep it. I say keep it because, like I said, I think it makes the language more colourful, more interesting. And then it also got me thinking just how many of those kinds of phrases we all use in English.
Without even knowing.
Without even knowing it. So many of them have almost become like you think they're English, even though you're speaking French.
Yeah.
You know.
Like déjà vu.
Femme fatale. These kinds of words.
Faux pas that you said in the introduction.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
So that's the question of whether some of them are so offbeat that they become confusing to people.
Yeah.
And does that mean that someone who is using them is being a little bit pompous? And does it fall into the same category of people who use French words that are totally normal in English, like restaurant or croissant or whatever, and same with a French accent?
Oh, that's a good one.
Or even the city name. That's a popular one.
So is there...
Like, we're going to Paris.
Yeah. Is there a problem with that? What do you think?
Ibiza?
I personally have a bit of a problem with it. I just don't like it. I think it sounds a bit...
Pompous.
Like a bit pompous, like you're trying too hard.
Well, then do you think you should say, like...
But also,
croissant?
each to their own. Yeah,
Instead of croissant?
In England, they say croissant.
Croissant.
That's a whole other...
But it's true. I think...
And it's fine. It's just I wouldn't do it. I would feel silly.
Yeah. It's funny because it's correct as well.
Yeah,
but
that's the thing.
This is a show about Paris. I would never say this is a show about Paris.
Exactly.
That's true.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, where do you draw the line?
And we're back again. Things got a little heated in here.
Yeah, especially the kettle. We had a cup of tea.
No, we just kept talking about this subject. I want to go back to something that you said, and it's not what you think I'm going to say.
Okay.
Earlier in the car, you were talking about, I think you said the Queen... The Queen, I'm talking about Queen Elizabeth II.
Of course, rest in peace.
You said she had an annus horribilis.
Oh, I did, yes. Latin, I believe.
And it was a communal gasp.
Lina, as a Swede.
It's like a horrible what?
Me as a Latin lover.
You knew exactly what I
I
was talking
figured
about.
out. I didn't think I'd ever heard that before, but I knew it meant a bad year, a horrible year somewhere. And I love it. I love the idea of using foreign... I love language too. Lina, you also speak Swedish and French. I think we can say that we both love the idea of learning new languages and
mixing it all together.
Integrating them.
Yeah.
And I think it's really nice when foreign... one thing I love about English that I hate about French is English is so willing to take in new words from different cultures. They do it all the time. They take every different word and they're like, we're not going to bother translating that. would just take it.
Well, isn't it a little bit in the English culture just too?
Here we says the Viking.
Okay, I said my piece.
No,
Valid point. But that's an interesting thing. Are there any phrases in French that are pure English?
funny that I can get to that. But first, Sweden is really good at taking English phrases. They're really like they take a English word and just put an A at the end. It's a verb.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
I surf the internet, surf the internet.
Oh, yeah.
Like I chatta with someone. Like they just take it and they go with it.
My theory is that it's such a small language, tiny, that it's not spoken anywhere else. So we need input. We need to
Keeping it
evolve.
alive.
Yeah.
Well, English does the same thing. We even take Swedish words, a few, but like smorgasbord, Swedish
wow,
word. We
yeah.
just take it and we use it.
IKEA.
IKEA, of course.
So they do that.
Who can live without it?
French is much more strict about not taking words. There's lots of famous stories that any Francophiles know. Words like hashtag. Everybody started saying hashtag. And then the Académie Française, which is like the men, probably all men, in robes, something like the Da Vinci Code. And they say, no, this will not do. We will have an official translation. And that translation was mot dièse. And they had a translation for email. They weren't happy that people kept saying email.
Oh, wow.
At the same time, they do, I know that they, in French you can say je kiffe something, which means I like, coming from, I think, Arabic.
Okay.
So they do...
They just want
There
English.
is integration.
Yeah, maybe
in
that... Well, that
language.
doesn't surprise me at all.
Dogs
Did you hear that
barking.
sheep in the background?
Yes. That was a paid actor.
There's the truth that we are in the countryside. But this whole thing of French not evolving, I don't like it. And I like the idea of English evolving. I like the idea of challenging people, even if it's just a tiny little bit.
Do you have any favorite phrases? That
Favorite
have snuck their way into
French
English?
phrases? Tough question. On the spot? I don't know. Nothing. Have you got some? Is that why
C'est
you
la vie.
asked?
C'est la vie.
Yeah. I always ask questions that are setting me up for success and you
C'est
up
la
for
vie.
failure.
How
So
about
the-
creme de la creme?
Well, that's
That's a
so
good
funny
one.
because
De la Edgar.
in all the what's that?
Isn't that from the 101 Dalmatiner?
101 Dalmatians.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know that bit.
Oh, well.
Oh,
Well,
like
there we
that.
go.
See there? That was another example.
Well,
Yeah.
I think it's actually something that we've done with all the books so far. You said crème de la crème. I put that in Kylie the Crocodile. And I put French words in Roger the Liger as well. And I'm happy to reveal that in the final edit of Grace the Giraffe, Eddie's doing a drum roll in
I'll
the
put
air.
it in. I'll put it in post.
I did keep the line.
Yeah.
Why?
Because I liked it. I've always in the children's book liked rhyming French with English. I think it's fun. I think it sets them apart from normal English language books.
Well, it's very creative.
I like the line of. I changed the whole thing though. The whole thing is not as it was in the initial draft, but I kept a la mode and river flowed as a rhyme because I like it, and it wasn't to do with anything that people said.
You're your own man and you make your own decisions uninfluenced. I've
Yeah.
always said that.
Yeah.
Always said that.
So if you guys, all that's to say that if you guys pick up a copy of Grace the Giraffe in Passion.
The X-rated version.
Where did that come about? I guess I was thinking of fashion in Paris.
You're trying to rhyme.
If
still.
you pick up a copy of Grace the Giraffe in Paris, you don't need to edit out my mistake.
Oh,
I
that's
don't
what
mind.
you meant.
You will see that towards the end of the book, there's a page. I just want you guys out there to know how much time and thought can go into a single page of a children's book.
Or a single line.
Yeah.
But on the page with the illustrations as
Oh,
well.
sure.
Like that page,
Oh, it's hours and hours and hours. It's days
yeah.
of work for just one.
So I just hope everybody out there, when you get to that page, if you've listened to this
hours on it.
podcast, no, just to know, a lot went into this. There's a lot more going on.
Well, even if people don't, if they just kind of brush over it, I'm fine with that.
No, I'm not fine
You're
with
not
that.
fine with that.
I want you to enjoy
All
it.
right, read and reread, people.
Yeah.
I think also at the end of the day, I think there's something we haven't really talked about with all this culture clash in foreign languages. And it's something I thought about a lot, especially in the past 10, 12 years that I've lived in foreign countries, especially in European foreign countries. When it comes to communication, the most important thing is to be understood and to understand. And I find it quite rude if you talk to someone in a way that they can't understand, knowingly especially, but unknowingly, I think there's something to be said about that. Like if you go to France as a tourist and you speak the way that you speak to people back home, to French people, I think that's rude. I'm against the idea of dumbing it down in general, but everyone should be able to dumb themselves down if you're talking to somebody who's not on the same level
Shouldn't
as you.
even be called dumb down. It should be called like make yourself understood.
Yeah.
I think you're being dumb if you don't
That's the
make
thing.
yourself understood.
Yeah.
Because I see it all the time in Paris, where some of the waiters or whatever
And
don't
just
speak
shout
perfect
louder
French.
and louder.
Or they say, I heard someone order a croissant right next to me the other day, and they went in, and the first lady said, une croissant, and the lady gets the croissant for her, and then the other one goes, you better make it deux croissants. And the waiter had no idea what she was talking about. I was like, what? You can't say you better make it deux. Like, that doesn't even mean anything. And it's too advanced.
It's very Emily in Paris. Like, it's cool and it's a bit cheeky, but it doesn't actually really work.
It doesn't fly.
Yeah.
So maybe it's
In
not
real
called
life.
dumbing it down, but communication, the most essential thing, is being understood. Why do things that are out of that realm, whether it's a children's book or whether it's ordering a croissant? You can play with it a bit.
Or is it a croissant?
Oh my gosh, here we go. Croissant in a restaurant. But anyway, my point is, I like to challenge it a little bit, but communication, understanding is essential. About Grace the Giraffe and then about the book tour. First, that I'm really excited to say that we've shown that advanced copy that we've got to, I'd say, all of the big bookshops in Paris, at least the English language ones, and all of them will be stocking it,
Yeah.
probably by November. The Louvre Museum is taking a big order of them, and they're going to be, nothing is ever confirmed when someone says something, but they've invited us to do a signing and a teaching drawing lesson.
Yeah, an event.
So we're going to be in the Louvre. That's
Yeah.
got to be a career highlight, I think.
It's very exciting.
All the people who've pre-ordered, especially on the Kickstarter or through my website, you'll be the first to get it. We're going to send them all out way before they're in the shops. They'll be in your hands in October. About the book tour, or if you want to get a copy of the book, the earfultower.com/grace. Nice and easy. The book tour.
Yeah.
The idea with these events is we're not going to try and recreate, a Rolling Stones tour here. We're going to be doing small stuff. We're going to be talking in some schools, in like a French cafe or whatever. If you have a venue or you have access to this kind of thing, or you have a crowd of people who are into this kind of thing, get in touch. Send me an email. Contact@theearfultower.com or on any of the social media stuff, or Lina at Parisian Postcards. And what we're going to do is on the 10th of October, we're going to fly to Brisbane, rent a car, drive to Melbourne for the end of the month. It's all on social media. You'll be able to see where we're stopping. If you're in one of those cities and you think you maybe have missed an invite to an event, just send a message. For the bigger cities, we'll be publishing what we're going to do, and you can come find us. Even if it's just to say hello. We don't expect anyone to come and necessarily buy books
Merch.
or merch or anything. We just want to say hello to people.
Goodness me, if you have been following along behind the scenes on social media, you will know that episode came with a lot of headaches. It's incredible, really, that you managed to listen to it, given everything that went wrong along the way. But just a little sort of outro from me here. The tour has begun. If you're in Australia, we started in Hobart. The show was great. Big shout out to Adrienne, self-proclaimed oldest listener to the show at 86, and kind of fittingly first in line to see the new book. If you're in Brisbane, we'll be there on the 12th of October at the Alliance Française at 7 p.m. We've got events lined up in Sydney on the 20th and the 18th as well. I think it's a double show. All the info is going to be constantly updated on my social media pages and on my website, theearfultower.com. If you're not in Australia, I want to give a shout out to all the Patreon members who make this show happen, because quite specifically, Eddie and I sat down after that recording and finished off the new 2023 Paris PDF guide. It's about 200 things to do in this beautiful city of Paris. This one is different because a lot of it has come from the new stuff that we saw for the first time in our Paris countdown season. So it's loads of new tips that you've heard on the podcast, plus some of the classics from previous guides. But it's fresher than all the other guidebooks you'll see in the bookshops. So you get that free if you're a Patreon member. Otherwise, it'll be on sale in my online shop. As for me, I'm going to go and explore the east coast of Australia. Hopefully, I'll meet a bunch of you then. If not, I'll see you in Paris one day. Thanks for listening, and onwards with the new season of the Earful Tower. Oh, I can say this too. In the upcoming episodes, I've got Edward Chisholm, who wrote the fantastic new book, A Waiter in Paris, and we recorded it in a very fancy setting. You'll hear about that soon. And also Eric Lejoindre, the mayor of Montmartre, showing me around the private Montmartre cemetery. The first time for him and the first time for me too. Until then, merci beaucoup and au revoir.